transformation has never been more evolved, and rapid innovations in global economies are transforming chief financial officers into far more strategic chief future officers. Hello everyone, and welcome to RGP's webcast, dedicated to unpacking the genius strategies of the CFOs who are defying economic challenges and driving large-scale cloud migrations. These CFOs know that cloud ERP is a key strategic tool that can change a company's business model in revolutionary ways. Today we'll hear from 7 experts who will speak about the second wave of ERP migration. This second wave is more measured and more strategic than the first wave of ERP migrations that happened post-pandemic. We'll look at its impact, how to overcome key challenges, and how to build a cloud migration strategy that speeds time to value and maximizes ROI. It's a lot to unpack. So if you have questions during our webcast, please put them in the chat. So with that in mind, let's examine the trends that are leading to the urgency around cloud ERP migration. According to a study by Gartner, CFOs have 5 key priorities: leading transformation efforts, evaluating or improving finance strategy, improving finance metrics, insights, and storytelling, leading change management efforts, and optimizing costs. Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP migration, is a solution to all 5 of these concerns. For some, it has become the secret weapon for creating a strategy to move with the greatest speed and agility while squeezing the most value out of their company-wide investments. There are several reasons for this. ERP systems automate workflows and actions through AI and machine learning, reducing manual processes that take long hours. They can also identify opportunities for optimizing revenue using predictive analytics and significantly reduce IT costs. And not surprisingly, having this technology helps attract and retain top talent. In other words, the move to the cloud isn't just a technology upgrade anymore. It's a business decision that is fundamental to the company and its future growth. The CFO is becoming the chief future officer who needs to steer the innovation that drives the whole company forward. While the majority of companies struggle with ERP cloud implementation, a recent McKinsey study found that certain companies are succeeding for one key reason: executive sponsors who work communication into their strategies. The study identified a subset, 15% of the total sample, succeeded in migrating more than 60% of their total IT hosting spend to the cloud and did so within the timeline they set. Those outperforming companies are 32% more likely than others to have active CEO sponsors. At one company surveyed, the CEO pressed the case for cloud adoption, setting a top-down strategy and communicating with the entire company in written updates and town halls. Employees knew that the cloud strategy had the CEO's direct support, and as the company's head of IT told McKinsey, "It's not enough to have the CIO on board. You need the CEO and board-level support to provide air cover. It's important to know that they have your back when you engage with others in the business." RGP takes this a step further in its recent dynamic workforce report by citing the triumvirate of CEOs, CFOs, and CHROs as being critical to successfully tackling the most ambitious of digital transformation projects. And here to unpack this with us today are RGP's Rav Chowdhary, VP of Consulting Services, Anil Mohinani, Senior Director of Technology, and Frederike Rhodes, Senior Director and Solution Principal. Glad you're all here. There is a lot to discuss.
Thank you for having us.
It was really interesting to hear about this executive triumvirate for digital transformation. Rav, what do you make of the study and how it relates to executive sponsorship?
I mean, it's absolutely critical. I mean, what this is emphasizing is a technology transformation or digital change, whether that's SAP for HANA or any other technology. It's a change to the business. It's a transformation for the business and an enabler. I think Executive Suite and the CXO Suite are obviously driving and getting heavily involved.
Can you talk a little bit about the role of the CHRO in all of this?
I think the critical thing is really understanding where we need talent to drive the change and the types of talent that will be needed, not just once the change is delivered, but then also to start operating the new capability and processes, whether that's training, whether that's additional comms, to really upskill the existing workforce to be able to then operate the updated capabilities that are delivered as part of the transformation. So it's both during the actual transformation and having the right resources, delivering that transformation, but then equally also ensuring that the existing workforce are skilled and trained to be able to undertake the new expectations and and actually execute the benefits that are delivered from the transformation and the technology upgrade.
And I'd love to know, Frederike, because you work with CFOs of multinational companies all the time, what keeps them awake at night when it comes to digital transformation?
What keeps them awake at night? Good question. I think it's about, for CFOs especially, it's a return on the investment, right? We're investing into transformation, and then we deliver new technology. We've got big targets to hit. We have and this is the technology ultimately is enabling that.
What are the considerations for applying a global framework?
I think the critical thing is starting out in a particular region or a particular geography first and building out what the framework should look like, and really understanding then at a global level what things harmonize across from a global perspective. But I think doing an implementation first locally and having that broader view, and then once you move into the other regions, is then understanding what are some of the local nuances that potentially need to be applied. But the best way to do that is really understanding what are the common policies that we need to operate as a firm. What are the common practices that we want to operate across the firm? So really building out what are those common policies, what are those common frameworks that as a firm we want to operate, but then allow for the local, whether it be legal, regulatory type components, whether it be cultural sensitivity type components, which may be relevant in a local region that needs to be considered, and allowing that for that discussion to happen, and then really to only really apply sort of localization where it's absolutely needed, given the local regulatory components that need to be factored in. So that's I think the way to approach it. And usually with the multinationals that we operate with, typically they will look at it, they'll look at it to do an implementation initially in one region, prove the implementation, and then start transitioning to other regions and start rolling it out to the other regions as well, and applying a local lens based on the local requirements and regulations, currencies, and so forth.
Who is the C-suite going to make sure this local rollout is doing well internally and that it's socialized through the company?
I think it could be a number of stakeholders. I think it could be the initial owners or the initial users of the platform. So it could be it could be the finance person who's using the application. It could be potentially, given it's a business transformation, typically would also span across supply chain procurement. So again, it could also be the managers that work within those areas who may also then be feeding feedback to say, actually, these processes are not very effective. Also, it comes down to the customer experience. So they may be seeing poor customer experience, they may be seeing delays in shipping deliveries, for example, as a result of not implementing some local components or localizing their solution.
How does an enormous company build transformation into their business model from your perspective?
It needs to be data. Use data more and more. We have more data available. So when we're talking about continuous improvement, starting by what does success look like in this space, and then looking at different levels, because we've got the individual level of, okay, this process takes this person this long, and they're logging into the system when we expect them to log into the system, versus organizational metrics where we're saying, okay, the return on the investment, customer satisfaction scores, to Anil's point earlier, and I think you mentioned it as well, Molly, just really thinking about, okay, what is some of those behaviors we want to observe and that ultimately drive adoption and that drive the return on the investment, and then keeping an eye on that, actively looking at those and allowing ourselves to change strategy if we need to, or to change the plan if we need to, because something doesn't work. rather than wait 2 years because the business case has a return on the investment within 2 years, and get to the end of the 2 years and say, oh, we missed the mark, what a shame. But to say, actually, we didn't observe certain behaviors, we didn't see the use in the system that we would expect, and we've got so much data available today, to then intervene and help and understand where are they stuck. Is it an awareness issue? Is it a capability issue? And so on. So I think that's one huge piece, the data, and then the culture to kind of foster innovation and allow people. And I think Ralph mentioned it earlier, and we've talked about it, like the cross-functional relationship, because as soon as what we see in our clients when they work in silos, then continuous improvement is because we only see our little part of the process. So continuous improvement is stifled when we're not talking to each other and we're looking at the bigger picture, and can share ideas. And so I think there's a big piece around culture, and the other side, the more scientific, the data and analytical approach.
Rav, anything to add to that?
Thinking about the personas in each of these scenarios, right? And the mindset of what's in it for me. I think we're thinking about it as individuals, as humans, as individuals, as change. So each individual is thinking about what's in something for me, and each team is thinking what's in it for me. So I think the more and more we can help clients and teams understand that there's a benefit to each of us in different ways, but it's different and it's unique, right? Somewhat, depending on who the persona is. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of whoever's walking the walk on the client's side, whether that's a functional area or individual. I think that's a lot of what change is about. It's a phrase I mentioned earlier, no hearts and minds, but no what's in it for me in that mindset. Right? There's a bigger vision, but there's also some individual benefit. I think the other lens, just knowledge to apply, is there's other transformation going on at the same time, right? So even though you're doing a SAP for HANA upgrade, when we talk to CFOs, and I spoke to one yesterday, they have their own goals to become a digital finance function. They still have those goals. And what they talk to us about is having a parallel track where, yes, they are looking to SAP for HANA and they're on that track with how they keep transforming their finance function, digitizing at the same time. So there's an aspect of people continue to feel like they can drive their change at individual level while they work towards a bigger corporate change. So I think allowing people to have both in parallel and not stifling creativity and innovation, like Freddie says, is important as well. I think probably just the third comment from my side is the more and more we talk to clients now, the more it's clear, and even to our own business, right? Transformation is continuous. Transformation is not a point in time thing that happens. I think over the last 5 to 10 years, that's just become more and more apparent. Post-COVID, I think companies are realizing they've just got to be transforming all the time just to keep on top of where they need to be in the marketplace. So having that mindset in organization, which links into what Freddie's been talking around change management, is just a different way of thinking about transformation and change. And it's not something that just happens as a one-off. It's ongoing, it's pervasive, it's valuable. Change is a little bit intimidating, but actually if we're continuously changing, that means we're doing something different. That's usually a good thing, right? So I think that's correct, kind of the third point I'd just kind of like to leave the audience with.
This is such a great conversation, and we're getting close to time, but Anil, I want to give you the last word. How are you thinking about building constant transformation into this, and how CFOs can approach this change management around cloud ERP?
I think the critical thing is really looking at it from kind of breaking it down maybe into smaller components and not looking at it as a massive program transformation that they have to run. We're really looking at it from a business strategy perspective, understanding what are the key business initiatives, what are the key business areas to focus on, and bringing the business along that journey. And then really then focusing in on trying to develop kind of a roadmap where you break down the core components and focus on some quick wins to then demonstrate the value that's delivered back into the business. Ultimately, if a program's going to run for 2 years and there's no value to be shown for those 2 years, it's going to be very difficult to get buy-in from the board, from the CXO suite. So it's really demonstrating early on the benefits and the value of the transformation, bringing the business along that journey, and bringing all the core components, all the business areas along that journey so they see that benefit. I think that's critical.
Excellent. These have been incredible insights, incredible strategies. Thank you all. Even the most Thoughtful and detailed strategies come with real-time challenges, the most common being time, cost, and resources. Today, we're going to learn from the best of the best. Allow me to welcome SAP's Vice President of Mid-Market Strategic Initiatives, Nick Maglaris, who has overseen countless migrations and helped companies overcome challenges and reach their full potential using creative strategies and best-in-class technology. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Molly. Look forward to this discussion.
Before we dive in, let's take a step back and talk about why CFOs would even consider taking on a big initiative. Nick, what are the biggest pain points you're hearing from CFOs who want to move to the cloud?
So, cloud ERP is just a foundational element for organizations to set that foundation to build their organization to allow them to grow. Very rarely do I get a phone call saying, I want to put in an ERP system. Conversation starts with the CFO and it starts to, I need something predictable, scalable, and allow my business to innovate at points I couldn't do before.
If you've been working on a bunch of legacy systems, you definitely know the pain that creates. But the idea of a long implementation is prohibitive. How long are we talking here?
So I've seen implementations. I've probably lived some of those implementations that have taken years. Times have kind of changed. I've seen organizations right now, being a chemical carve-out manufacturer, go live in a public cloud solution in 13 weeks. We have another one that's gone live, same industry, and they've gone on a private cloud solution. They've gone live in 20 weeks. So those implementations of the past are gone.
I'm sure that people watching today might be feeling a little bit late to the game. Maybe they feel like they can't get up to speed quickly enough. What would you say to them?
Getting ready to get up to the game, I think we're all in that same boat. Last November, ChatGPT came up, and within a year and 2 months, I feel like I'm late in the game. And from an ERP cloud perspective, eventually you're going to have to pick a roadmap of industry best practices to follow. Then you have to find a group of individuals to help you execute that. And the creation of that valued network of growth between technology and advisory helps you get there and reduces some of those fears of, did I go the right way? Sometimes you need to be from 1 to 2, and then it'll help you leapfrog going forward.
Great to have you here, Nick. Thank you so much for these expert insights. As we've heard today, accomplishing a successful migration, of course, takes advanced strategy and detailed planning, often in challenging conditions. When Solidigm spun off from Intel, the team had to quickly become self-sufficient. They could not remain on legacy Intel systems, and the transaction service agreements came with a hefty price for extending past the aggressive timelines. So the team at Solidigm decided to stand up a full-stack ERP solution, but had to do so quickly and with few employees. So they partnered with RGP, pulled off a migration in record time, and quickly saw positive business outcomes. Today we have Mike Knapp, Senior Director of Supply Chain Operations at Solidigm, Kathy Paisley, RGP's Vice President of Business Technology, and Pam Mudge, Vice President of Global Strategic Client Accounts at RGP, to talk about the journey and share their insights. Great to see everyone. Thanks for being here. Pam, since you're a master of the ERP landscape, I'd love for you to drive the conversation here and kick us off by talking about how RGP and Solidigm assess the challenges moving into the cloud.
Absolutely, Molly. Thank you for the kind introduction. Today, we're going to focus on the deployment of SAP S/4HANA and its impacts across the organization, not just the office of the CFO. One of our key learnings from our experience from Solidigm is executing with the right partners and the right focus across the C-suite. It really is the secret to making a CFO a Chief Future Officer. But let's dive into that deeper. Kathy, we partnered together in the early days of this effort. Thinking back to that project and looking ahead, how do you advise our clients to help them plan a holistic and successful business technology implementation? And what are some of those critical decision points that you like to explore during phase 0?
Yeah, thanks, Pam. That's a great question. I think in the situation with Solidigm, they were already pretty much through the design phase when we were introduced. But if you think forward, and for clients that are starting this journey to the cloud, there's a lot of phase 0 work around discovery and preparation that are critical to the success of the project. And the key areas that I focus on or that I recommend to our clients is make sure that you've got a clearly defined target operating model and clearly defined requirements. Beyond that, it's a huge effort to select the right tools and technologies and look across your entire landscape, see where you may be able to consolidate and reduce your overall architectural footprint. And then once you've got those tools and technologies selected, you really need to create a compelling business case, again, focusing on desired outcomes and benefits so that you can develop the KPIs to measure your success, but also use that as kind of your true north for the entire project team to stay grounded on what the goals are.
Kathy, that was really detailed. You provided a lot of helpful information that I know our audience is going to really appreciate. One of the things I heard, though, as a resounding message is organizations as a habit don't really spend as much time as they should in phase 0. Did we hear that correctly? Should we be spending more time, or should they be spending more time in resourcing and planning during that important phase of a project?
Pam, I think that's a great call out. And yes, we do see that quite a bit. Either clients don't understand really what they're embarking on, or they think of it as just an upgrade or a lift and shift instead of taking time to consider where are we struggling today, or where are we planning to grow and change our business model in the near future? How do we set ourselves up for success and build the right foundation out of the gate to help the project, stay on time and be successful. So I do think that's a good call out. In the case of Solidigm, again, because phase 0 happened before our team got actively involved, I'd love to get Mike's interpretation of, what needs to happen in phase 0 and any lessons learned.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. I think first of all, you're spot on, right? It's all about the more time you spend in phase 0, the less time you're going to spend in deployment, right? Because you're going to get it right the first time. Where we were unique is that we were not part of the original deal when we were divested from Intel, and so a lot of that upfront work, there weren't a lot of people at Solidigm that were involved, right? So what we tried to do is we tried to insert ourselves at that point and really get focused on what does success look like and what's the future going to look like. And I think that's the one piece that I would add is one of the key learnings of phase 0 is not looking to land an ERP upgrade or update on what you've done in the past, but how is that going to support what you're going to do in the future? I think that's a very important mindset change for the organization and for the leadership to understand where you're going. And then once we got that aligned, to really try to undo a lot of the Intel processes and really build up our Solidigm processes, that's when we started to make a lot of progress.
When you think about things from the operational lens, that actually also includes your customer experience. And I think sometimes people look at this as a system implementation like S4 is a company journey. What did you find in experience as it relates to your customers and how you were interacting outside of the organization?
There's a huge customer play here, right? In that, we turned on and we couldn't confirm orders because we couldn't get supply into our system. We couldn't get, right? So we couldn't confirm orders, right? So there's a huge part of this where we went out and had to speak to our customers. I know for myself, I went to several customer meetings and had to just, I promise we're going to get there. And, so it's not only just, it's not a self-contained, it's not self-contained even to the company, but it's your customers, it's your suppliers, it's the whole ecosystem that has to go on this journey with you. And that I think is another one thing, that's another one of those things that gets underrated, right? Is knowing and communicating to your customers that this is going to be the impact for this particular quarter. We expect these things to happen so that it's not a react, but you're more proactive in that education.
When you think about execution of project transformation, what tools or how do you guys go about assessing your teams? And, Mike, you talked about it, that molehill versus mountain component. How do you really determine what is a true roadblock to the go live date and what is something that's a molehill that we can kind of push over and push down the road?
Yeah. So my experience after doing this a few times, right, is you have the bell curve, right? You have the forward thinkers. You have the negative people that are like, this is never going to work. And you have the third of them that's in the middle looking for, which way do I go? I think the biggest thing for me is pulling that sample set of people that are in the organization and really listening to the narrative that they're talking about, because then you can really address, you can address the, worrying about things that are going to happen 6 months from now, or are we worrying about things that are going to happen a month from now? And really prioritize the now, because most of the stuff that's going to happen 6 months from now, if you address the now, is going to go away, right? And when we started to take that approach of what do we need to get done this week, all of the fear and anxiety and doubt of the future kind of went away, because everybody now is focused on pulling on the same side of the rope and trying to get to that end line.
Art of the now. I think we just coined a new term.
Yeah.
I love it. Kathy, top that.
Well, that is a good one. I will share with you that, when we were introduced into Solidigm, it was, I think, the same week that the CFO was named, and he was being faced with, again, this aggressive timeline, and literally at the point of being handed a full design spec for the software build, and he really had no input, very little input into that entire design spec. And there was really a skeleton crew in place from the finance and accounting team at that point. And so we were jumping in, thinking about how do you source that team? What kind of talent do you bring? We came with really two teams at the outset. One was focused on the implementation project and S4 SAP, and was really starting with the design spec and building from there to document the requirements and to back into business process designs and flows and the appropriate test scripts and test scenarios and master data cleansing, all the activities that a normal project team would do if they were there. And meanwhile, Solidigm was in the midst of designing their organization and hiring their team. And at the same time, they had to build out a lot of corporate functions that didn't exist when they were a business unit inside of Intel. So things like treasury and HR and legal processes that were covered by a corporate or shared service center, now they had to be completely self-sufficient.
We are at time for this segment, but I'd love to end with one final question. What is the best piece of advice you can give others about to embark on their cloud ERP migration journey?
Be patient. Be patient with yourself, be patient with your teams, be patient with your leadership. It's going to get heated. Stay calm and take one step at a time.
Thank you all so much for those expert insights. So glad you could share. Well, our time together has come to an end, but I'd love to leave you with these key takeaways. As Rav, Anil, and Frederike will tell you, CFOs need CEO and CHRO collaborators to ensure successful rollouts while balancing company culture. And on that subject of culture, remember that global rollouts must be thoughtful and always require a knowledgeable local team. From Nick, we learned that technology advances have made cloud migration much easier than they were in the past. Also, using technology that has best industry practices embedded in it will create indefinite ROI. And as Pam, Mike, and Kathy outlined, fast-paced transformations require each team member to master the art of the now by becoming masters of prioritization. Doing so will help solve current problems and prevent future ones. If you'd like to learn more about how to get started with ERP cloud migration, please visit rgp.com/clouderp. Thank you for watching.